quarterly basis, and would certainly enjoy having your input on what you think is important to our community. Council on Aging holds regular meetings on the second Tuesday, usually, unless otherwise documented, of every month in the mornings around 10:30. We'd love to have you there. We've got donuts, drinks, fruit bars. Help yourself, save me a donut. Today's forum is about fraud and scams. Something that has been taking place in our community more frequently than a lot of you would think. And we've got two perfect people here. You might know one of them. I don't know. Police Chief Ryan is here to discuss some things. And we have from Edward Jones Finance, financial advisor Cheryl Mansfield. And she's got some of the same concerns, and we'll talk about that. Lynn, who you may have met at the back, is my better half, and she will take care of you if you need anything. She'll be more than happy to help you with your hands up. So without any further ado, Ryan actually has another engagement immediately. Well, he's got to leave early, so he's going to be in, do his thing, and answer some questions, and then be on his way to speak about the exact same thing somewhere else. So, Chief Ryan?
Perfect. Good morning, everybody. If everybody can see me and hear me okay, then I'll sit. If you would like me to stand, more than happy to do that. One of the more, unfortunately, common types of calls that our officers respond to daily is some type of scam or fraud. And the only thing that remains consistent about them is that they're constantly changing. And they kind of started out years ago with the IRS phone call scams, and they have progressively gotten more convoluted and more convincing. And now you're getting emails, and you're getting mail handouts, and sometimes you have people going door to door to your house with the intent to scam you. And so a lot of times, once somebody has been scammed, it's very difficult for us to recover whatever compensation that the victim was scammed out of to make them whole. And so I always say the best way to protect yourself is to arm yourself and educate yourself on how to protect yourself, how to protect your personal finances, your personal information, the information of your family and your spouse. And that's what we're here today, is to just kind of learn some things, how to protect ourselves and some of the more common types of scams that are going on in our community here. Raise your hand if you haven't gotten a scam phone call in the past week from somebody. And so fortunately now, cell phones do a great job, at least mine does. It tells me when it's spam, but I always have this rule of, if I don't know the number, and especially if it's not local, I don't answer it. And because it's probably somebody that I don't want to talk to. They're going to try to get money out of me, legitimate or not. And so so that's the first way to protect yourself, is because most folks now, at least I don't have a home phone, my parents don't have a home phone anymore, everything is by cell phone. And so that's the first way to kind of just protect yourself, is just know who's calling you, and just know that, you know, if it says spam, it's probably spam. And I always have the rule of, if I don't know the number, if it's important, they'll leave me a message, or they'll immediately call me back. So one of the most common types of scams that we get here, and I know Cheryl's going to talk about it a little bit too, is the grandpa or the grandma it's me scam. And what happens is your phone rings and you pick it up and they say, "Grandma or Grandpa, it's me." And the unsuspecting person on the line says, "Ron, is that you?" And they say, "Yes, it's me, it's Ron." And what usually happens is they say they've either been arrested somewhere or they've been in an accident and they're in the hospital. And so the family member immediately, of course, says, "Oh my God, that's terrible. Where are you at, and what can we do?" A lot of times they say, "Well, I went to Canada or I'm in Costa Rica and I don't have access to my money, I'm gonna let you talk to either an attorney or a doctor, and they're gonna tell you how you can help me. And they always want payment through a gift card. And I always tell folks, there's a million different types of scams that all revolve around gift cards or prepaid cash cards, or we call them green dot cards. And if anyone asks you for that on the telephone, it's not a legitimate organization, it's not a legitimate issue, whether it's a cable company, it's a family member, it's somebody supposedly from the IRS threatening legal action. If they're asking you for a gift card or a prepaid green dot card, it's a scam, always. I've never heard of a legitimate organization wanting payment through iTunes or Google Play cards. And unfortunately, we had somebody here in town about a month ago fall victim to a prepaid card scam, and they lost over $20,000. And so it's happening, and it's happening here in the community. And so what do you do in that situation? You hang up the phone on them if they say, "Grandma or Grandpa, it's me," and then you immediately call that relative of who they said they are, and 100 times out of 100 they're going to say, "Yeah, that's not me. I've not been arrested, or I haven't been in an accident, thankfully." And so you always err on the side of caution, and not just with scams, with anything. I've done a bunch of work with real estate agents on real estate agent safety, and I always say, trust your instincts. No matter where you're at, whether you're in the grocery store, whether you're answering the telephone, if it sounds like something is wrong, it probably is. And we've all had that experience where kind of the hair on the back of our neck stands up, or the hair on our arm stands up in anything. You see somebody out in public, and then the hair on the back of your neck stands up, and you don't know why. Well, that's your body's way of telling you something is off or something is wrong. And so, not just with scams, but with anything, if you feel like something's wrong, it probably is. And if you're on the phone, then it's easy. Just hang up the phone. And of course, never give out your personal information. Never quote verify. That's a famous one. Hey, we're with Spectrum, and we need to verify your social security number or your credit card number that you have on file. And that happens a lot. And then what they do is they open up a bunch of fake accounts in your name, and they charge up a bunch of money within a few hours. And by the time you report it to one of the credit bureaus, the damage has already been done, and it's difficult to recover from. And we had the Grandpa and Grandma It's Me scam. That was one of the first scams that I responded to here years ago. Helen Anderson, I don't know if anyone remembers Helen. That was how I met Helen. And she fell victim to that and actually went to Walmart and wired them $2,500, and then got home and said, well, something about that just doesn't seem right. And then she called her family member, and they said, yeah, that's not me. We were fortunately able to get her money back because the wire hadn't gone through, but nowadays they just ask for gift cards. And once you give somebody the gift card number on the other end of the phone, that money's gone immediately. And it's very difficult to recover from, and it never happens from in the state. A lot of times it happens out of the country or out of state, and that really limits law enforcement's capability of prosecuting them. Even if you could find out who it is, it's difficult. Cheryl, did you have anything you wanted to expand on the kind of the grandma or grandpa, it's me?
Yeah, it actually, somebody had called my mother-in-law, and she has one granddaughter and one grandson, and grandmother, it's me, your favorite granddaughter. And she's like, well, first of all, I'm Granny, and no, you're not my favorite granddaughter, and hung up on But so it happens, and it's just really sad that people are preying on other people. And so yes, just be very careful with that. And like you said, the best thing you can do is just hang up and call that particular relative, and it's just very simple, and they can confirm that it was not them.
Does anybody have any questions on that, or anything they'd like to share if they've had a family
gift card,
member?
why they have you go out and buy one?
Oh yeah, they have you go out and buy one, and then they'll tell you, don't tell anybody what's going on. And the retailers nowadays are pretty good. If they've got somebody coming in buying, because they're not asking for $200 or $300, they're asking for $2,000 to $10,000. And then sometimes they'll tell you, go to 3 or 4 different locations, and that's because they know that if you go in to buy $10,000 worth of iTunes cards, somebody's gonna say, okay, that doesn't sound legitimate, and the retailers are pretty well trained now, where they will ask you, hey, we're not trying to pry into your business, but do you know the person that you're giving this to? Was this something that was kind of perpetuated over the telephone? That sounds like a scam. We think you should stop and report it to law enforcement. Sadly, sometimes that doesn't stop people because the scammers are so convincing that they have it in their mind, no, I have to send this money to my family member, and sometimes they're victimized anyway, but they'll have you go to the store, they'll say, don't tell anybody, and if it's a large amount of money, they'll say, go to different stores. And so, and it's really sad, and like I said, once you give those numbers out, you can't, the money's gone within seconds, and you can't get it back. Another popular one with the scammers is the Amazon emails, where you get an email that looks like it's from Amazon with an Amazon logo, and it says there's been suspicious activity on your account. Please click this link and view the suspicious activity. Amazon will never send an email that says that, ever. And if you look at the email address it comes from, it'll have an Amazon logo on it, but the email account will be just gibberish that's not from Amazon. And if you click on the link, a lot of times what happens is it's giving somebody remote access to your computer, and then they will communicate with you over your computer and say, hey, we're holding your computer hostage, and you're gonna have to give us money and gift cards to get the computer back. And a lot of times they say, we're gonna release your internet browsing history to everyone in your contact list if you don't pay us $10,000. Or they say, hey, you click on this link and then it looks like a virus has infected your computer, and then you get a mysterious phone call from somebody claiming to be tech support. Hey, we think you're the victim of a computer virus, we want to help you out. And then they start out small and they say, well, you know, it'll only cost you about $500 and we can get you fixed. And then as they get further into it, they keep stringing them and roping them along. Well, now we've got more problems, and that's going to cost you $2,000, and that's going to cost you another $2,000. And if it sounds crazy or ludicrous, that stuff happens here, and people fall victim to it because they panic. Like, I don't want to lose. We use our computers for everything. They don't want to lose their computer, and some people don't want their internet browsing history released, and so they panic and they do what they're asked, and then they're out that money. But I get those emails from Amazon, those fake emails, all the time, and I get them on my government email, and I don't have an Amazon account with my government email, and so and I think Cheryl said your son was getting those same.
From Wells Fargo, he had received one, and my son's 29 and knows about these things, and he called me at work one day and he goes, you know, I've got this email, and I'm like, don't click on it. You know, he said, I haven't yet, that's why I was calling, just to double check with you. So always double check with a trusted friend or family member if you're unsure of something, because they can remain impartial and talk you through either, you know, don't do something. So that's key to have somebody that you trust and can go to if you think you need that help.
Yeah, and we don't mind. I always tell folks here, if you're unsure about something, call us, call the police here, and we're happy to. Sometimes somebody will call the station and talk to me, and within 5 seconds of the conversation, I'm like, yeah, hang up on that person, that's a scam. And sometimes it's, hey, well, let's send an officer out to your house to take a look at whatever it is, whether it's correspondence in the mail or an email, but we would much rather do that than somebody not lose their life savings. And I'm sure any other community in the county law enforcement would do the same, because it's such a problem. I saw one, our sheriff's office said that somebody was spoofing their phone number, so you get a call and the caller ID says Carteret County Sheriff's Office, and it's somebody soliciting donations for the PBA, the Police Benevolent Association, and our sheriff's office would never do that. But they can clone their phone number to make it look like John Clark's phone number if they wanted. And they're what they can do with technology is kind of scary as far as that. And then you say, oh, well, it's the Carteret County Sheriff's Office, and they need donations. Of course, we'll give them, $500, and that adds up over a lot, and unfortunately that's happening in just about every community. But the email, they call them email phishing scams because they're phishing. They're wanting people to click on links, and it's not just Amazon. And so I never click on a link in an email. So if it's Wells Fargo, if it's state employees, well, I always just go to state employees' website or Amazon's website and log in, and 99 times out of 100, there's no suspicious activity. They're just trying to get you to click on something. In fact, we just had a town employee's email hacked and send out, same thing. There was a link in there that they wanted you to click in a file, and it made it look like somebody from the town was sending out a file, and we haven't gotten any reports, fortunately, of anybody clicking on it. But as soon as I saw that, I was like, ooh, that's not good. And so I would never click on a link in an email, just because we use our computers for everything. And then once it's, whether you're making your mortgage payment or your credit card payments, all of that information is stored in your computer, and I don't know how to get that information out, but these scammers do. And that's how they get access to it. Does anybody have any questions on that or anything they'd like to share?
I got a for instance for you on PayPal. We don't have PayPal, and we're getting bills from PayPal for a washing machine, which is the last thing we need. It's 4 years old. We have 2 dogs that pre-wash. That thing is going to last longer than I am, and yet they're saying we got this $540 dishwasher that you ordered, which we didn't, and it's going to come to our door, I guess, at some point. Is PayPal? You said Amazon, so that's a big name. And
PayPal's another. You'll never have anything come to your door.
They won't.
No, and what they're doing is they're taking a gamble. They're just sending out mass emails, and most folks, or not most, but a lot of folks have an Amazon account. A lot of them have a PayPal account, and they see that, and then there's usually some type of phone number for you to call, and it's a scam. They call you on the phone and they say, oh, hang on a second, you didn't order that. Well, give us your credit card number, or we're going to refund you that money back on your credit card. And that's kind of the hook of how they get you.
What's weird is that my wife has called this number 3 or 4 times, and nobody's answering.
Well, and you know why? It's because they have a limited amount of people, of scammers, to take those calls, and other people are calling them. And so sometimes I'll get a scam phone call on my phone, on my cell phone, and I'll answer it and just put it on mute, and I just leave it on my desk. And it takes them a few minutes to hang up, and I'm like, man, that's a few minutes. That's a personal victory as far as I'm concerned, because that's a few minutes that they're not scamming somebody else. And but yeah, that's kind of the same thing. They're hoping that you call them and give them your credit card number, or verify it, so they can put the money back on your credit card. And so, because the first thing you think is, I didn't order that. You better not charge me $600. And when they say, oh, no problem, we'll put it right back on your credit card right now, you say, okay, great, that's easy. And then they max out your credit card.
What about, I get all the time these FedEx things that say they have delivered and they want, to verify it or something.
No.
I don't know, because I don't.
No.
Especially if it's unsolicited like that.
Yeah.
That is one of the red flags that it is a scam, and just ignore it altogether.
Yeah, and the only thing like a FedEx or a UPS or the Postal Service will want from you is a signature sometimes. And they've stopped a lot of that since COVID. But they're never, anytime somebody tells me they need to verify something, I'm like, yeah, I don't think so. And I've had one. I bank for state employees where my wife does all the banking because she's way better at it than I am. Where they call me and they say, hey, we got to verify such and such. And I was pretty rude to them and hung up on them because I thought it was a scam, and it actually wasn't. It was state employees, because then they called my wife and they said, hey, your husband was kind of rude to us on the phone. And then I was like, hey, better safe than sorry. Like, I'm sorry if they got their feelings hurt, but because it was an unsolicited call to me wanting to verify account number. Well, number one, I don't even know my account number because my wife does the banking. I said, but number two, I'm not giving anybody information over the phone. And in that circumstance, you hang up the phone and then you call state employees and say, hey, I got a call from them wanting to verify this. Can you just check my account to make sure there's no issues? But yeah, like Cheryl said, anything unsolicited, I'd be very skeptical of, especially with that word verify. We need to verify date of birth or social security number or credit card numbers. Absolutely not. Or they're sending you a dishwasher or washing machine. Yeah, it'll never show up. We just had one where somebody from Spectrum called a resident here and said, hey, we want to offer you a better deal on your cable package. Spectrum is never going to do that. Just out of the goodness of their heart, they're not gonna call you and say, hey, you know what, Ike, we're gonna save you a bunch of money from now on. And so again, it's that unsolicited nature. If you didn't initiate it yourself, I would just be very skeptical of. And that rule that my parents taught me years ago, if it sounds too good to be true, it probably is. Because again, they're not gonna just call you up and say, hey, we're gonna save you $100 every month. Because we're just making way too much money. They're not. Yeah, they're definitely not going to do that.
Yeah, Brian, just as a personal note, I was with Secret Service for 25 years, and I did a lot of fraud investigations. And one of the big ones back when I was doing these investigations was what we call the Nigerian fraud. And these guys would call you from Nigeria, and they'd say, "Hey, I've got a perfect opportunity for an American like you to get in on early. I've got this gold mine in Nigeria, and I've got the rights to it, and I'll let you have a portion of it if you'll transfer money to my account." And people would actually fall for that and send them like $10,000, $20,000. And the Secret Service actually, it was so prevalent, the Secret Service actually had an office in Nigeria, in Lagos, and we would staff it with people going in and out of there all the time to work with the Nigerian police to try to track these people down, because it was usually these tribal people, and they were getting money, trying to make money for their tribe, and that's how they did it. And a lot of them, they made a lot of money over the years, but finally it got shut down mostly because people got a little more wise about it, and I don't think it's going on anymore.
Well, and then what happens is once folks get wise to that, like Jerry was saying, they'll come up with a new scam. There's always going to be some type of scam out there, and with technology and the internet, it's just gotten, unfortunately, easier for these folks to kind of operate anonymously and just come up with new ways to trick people. And the last one that I'm going to talk about is kind of near and dear to my heart. I call them construction scams, and especially after hurricanes, where we're all in desperation mode after hurricane, especially if we've sustained home damage. And these out-of-town construction companies, and not all construction companies that come from out of state or out of town are bad folks. A lot of them see an opportunity to help some folks and make some money, but I always say that you just really have to be careful of who you trust. And the things that we saw most common were, hey, if you give us $2,000 or $3,000, we'll put a tarp on your roof, we'll put you on a list for a new roof, and then once we get to you on the list, we'll come back. And then those folks never come back. They just got charged $2,000 for a tarp. Yes, ma'am.
If anybody does that in the construction business contacts you, if you ask them for their liability and workers' comp insurance, then you can check with their insurance agent to make sure they're legit. If they will not give it to you, I wouldn't let them on your property.
Yeah, absolutely. And I always say be wary of folks that are in construction going door to door soliciting business. Kind of, again, that unsolicited nature of it. You always ask for references, ask for copies of their insurance, make sure they're a general contractor and what their general contractor number is, especially if they're from North Carolina. And always, always, always get everything in writing. Get quotes. I'm very wary. I don't, even construction that I have going on at my home, I never pay people up front. And if they say, well, I don't have enough money to buy the materials until I get money from you, then I'm going to find a different contractor. And unfortunately, we had a lot of that happen after Hurricane Florence. That's almost exclusively what we did for about a year after Hurricane Florence, was different scams where people never got the work done, and they gave all of their insurance money to these contractors or these supposed contractors, and then never saw or heard from them again. And that's very frustrating because we're already damaged enough from a hurricane, and then these folks are victimized again by scammers. And so I always say, you know, get referrals from your neighbors. Hey, have you ever had any plumbing work done or roof work done? Who have you used? And the great thing about this community is everybody knows everybody, and and so you can find out who folks have used in the area, and if you do end up having to use somebody out of the area in a situation after a storm, just make sure to be very diligent about checking their references and getting everything in writing and getting copies of their insurance, and it makes our job a little easier if they do kind of tuck and bail. But most of the cases we investigated were all by word of mouth. They came door to door. They didn't get a quote or anything in writing, and they gave them money up front. They never saw those folks again.
Ron, what are the Medicare scammers looking, what kind of information are they hoping to get from people? We get calls like that all the time, even though I constantly tell them there's nobody in our house that's Medicare age.
So
They could not take me off from this.
So they are trying.
Tell a lie in a second.
So they're trying to verify information. They're trying to verify your social security number, your date of birth, and we had somebody report to us that they got one of those calls, and then the person was very convincing on the other end of the line, and they said, if you don't believe me, call this 1-800 number. And they called the 1-800 number and sat on hold for forever. Well, then they hung up the phone. Well, then they actually said, well, I know somebody that works for Medicaid. And so they called them and they said, yeah, that's a scam. So they called me and just gave me the 1-800 number. Google is a powerful tool. So I put the 1-800 number into Google, and it was all these fraud and scam alerts that other people have filed on this 1-800 number. So I called the number, and it was very legitimate sounding. Had I just kind of cold called the number, I would have believed that I was on the phone with a government organization. There was waiting music. There was this call is monitored and recorded for quality assurance. You listen to the elevator music. I mean, it sounds legitimate. And then one of the first things they do is, please enter your social security number with your touchpad so we know who we're speaking with. And I entered like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, and then somebody answers the phone, and then they're clearly not American. And so, but
We're non-native English speakers.
yes, so but it sounded legitimate. But I Googled the number and just went to Google, typed in the 1-800 number, and like I said, Google is a powerful tool sometimes. So if you get a phone number from somebody, or you get an email that says call this number and it's from state employees or Wells Fargo, it's amazing, because the first thing people normally do when they get victimized is they report it to the federal government or to local law enforcement. So that stuff makes it out on the internet pretty quickly.
There's another box in the shoreline with some of this information in it. If somebody wants to call our local police department and say, you know, this has happened, is this a scam, what number do you want them to call?
They can call the office number, and if it's Monday through Friday, if it's after hours on the weekend, they just need to call our non-emergency dispatch number. And our officers go to those calls half a dozen to a dozen times a week. And a lot of times, if it's during the week, then I take those phone calls and can kind of help give folks some guidance on, I can't remember a single time where somebody has called me and said, I think this is a scam, I'm not sure, where it wasn't. It's always a scam. And if you just kind of get your brain in that mindset of kind of guilty until proven innocent, you'll protect yourself a lot more. Yes, ma'am.
Another thing in answering the phone, they're always trying to get you to say yes. Like, can you hear me now?
Mm-hmm.
Don't ever say yes on the phone to somebody you don't know or something like that. Because if you say yes and it's recorded, you may have bought something.
Yeah, and
They're always trying to get you to say yes.
well, and again, if it's out of the area and I don't know the number, I'm not answering it. And even sometimes they spoof numbers, and so I'll have a ton of 252 numbers call me, and you get this on most of the scam calls I'm getting now on my cell phone. When you answer the phone, you hear a beep.
Yep.
And I don't know what that is, but it's always
Transferring.
yeah, it's always an indicator of a scam. So if you answer the phone, you say hello, and you hear doot, and then somebody starts talking, I'd hang up the phone. 'Cause
most of the spam phone calls don't leave a message, except student loans. They always leave a message.
Yeah.
Help us out with our student loans.
Yeah, I keep getting calls about my student loans, but I paid all my student loans off years ago, so, I qualify for student loan forgiveness, call me, they're gonna give me $10,000, and it's like, yeah, again, if it's too good to be true, it always is. And then I'll just leave on a couple more things before I turn it over to Cheryl. I'm always remiss if I have a group this size, if I don't always tell people to lock the doors of their cars. Never keep firearms or valuables inside of your car, and always lock the doors to your home even during the daytime, because we've had a lot of scary stuff happen even during the daytime where somebody left the front door unlocked and somebody just walked into their house. So I'm always remiss if I don't say that, because almost 99% of our car break-ins that we go to are unlocked car doors, where they just go car to car to car to car, and they check door handles until they find one unlocked. And sadly, lots of times there's purses and credit cards and firearms inside of unlocked cars. So always lock the doors to your cars.
Also, your garage door opener,
Yes.
it's in your car,
Yes.
that's in the, if I go out in the morning and find that my car was unlocked, my first thought is that garage door was available in that car.
Your first thought is Jerry left your car unlocked.
I actually do. That is, when I'm back to the house, that is my first question.
I'm gonna get a phone call right after that.
Yep, that's right. Yes, ma'am.
Can I ask you about a scam I just heard about
Absolutely.
recently? Actually, from one of the town commissioners who sends out an email every once in a while. And this is about a fraud having to do with the deed to your home.
Mm-hmm.
And evidently there are people who will register a deed to your home in their name.
Mm-hmm.
And I was really confused about that, because I just don't know how that can be done legally. Wouldn't you need a lot more than just going to the courthouse and filling out something? So I did Google that and found out that there's a lot of companies that will offer you protection against this, and it costs, I don't know, $10 or $20 a month to protect yourself from someone registering your deed. And so I'm thinking maybe the scam is in making people afraid of this and then selling them something else. Anyway, I'm just kind of confused about it, and I certainly don't want somebody taking over my property.
Right. So our Register of Deeds office in Carteret County, which is who maintains deed transfers, title transfers, marriage certificates, marriage licenses, they just started offering a service where you can ask for email alerts anytime somebody files any type of paperwork at the Register of Deeds office with your name on it. And so I registered myself and my wife. It's not an easy scam, but we do have an open case where somebody went to an attorney's office and did a deed transfer without a title search, and then that attorney's office filed it with the courthouse, and they were unaware of it. And according to the courthouse, and they have no way of verifying that information, that house belongs to two people out of state now, and
For $10.
Yep, for $10. And so the way that our state's record system is set up, they don't have any mechanism to verify that or not. They just put it on file. But it says at the top, it's a deed transfer without a title search. And judges and law enforcement have been the victims for a lot of years. We call it paper terrorism, where a judge convicts somebody of something, or a law enforcement officer arrests somebody, and then that person goes and finds out that that judge or that law enforcement officer owns property, and then they file liens against their property against them, which they don't find out about for years until they go to sell their house, and then they do a title search and they say, oh, well, there's 15 liens against your property, and you can't sell your property until you clear all those liens up. And so it is a concern. I wouldn't say it's as an immediate of a concern as some of the stuff that we're talking about here, but our Register of Deeds office does have that great new tool where you can let them know your name and your address and your email address, and they send you email alerts if somebody tries to do anything in your name or with your address.
But Ryan, wouldn't the attorney be responsible for filing fraudulent paperwork?
They have questions that they're mandated to ask in those circumstances, and they go through those questions, and they get paid their money for their title search or for their deed transfer and their notary stamp, and then they file the paperwork. And so, not as much as you would think.
Well, I know you got to go run.
Yes, does anybody have any questions for me before I go, before I turn it over to Cheryl? Again, if anybody has any concerns about scams or something that they think is a scam, please call us. We're happy to help you navigate that process. And one other thing I want to end on, if you do become a victim of a scam, don't be embarrassed. And a lot of times folks are hesitant to report it to us because they're embarrassed. It happens to, law enforcement officers are the victims of scams just because they're constantly changing how they do things, and sometimes we're caught unaware, even though we kind of preach, scam and fraud protection and prevention. Please don't be embarrassed. Nobody's going to judge you. We just want to help you try to remedy the situation and make yourself whole. So if you are the victim, please report it to us. If you have friends or family and they live in other jurisdictions, and encourage them to report it to their law enforcement. And we're happy to help any way that we can. Thank you. Cheryl, I'm going to turn it over to you.
Okay, thank you.
Yes.
Thank you, Ryan.
And I think I'm going to stand up so my voice, I'm a little shorter, and so my voice projects. So, yes, I'm Cheryl Mansfield. I'm a financial advisor with Edward Jones. My office is in Morehead City, next to Sunshine Dry Cleaners. Lynn DeLauro is my teammate and Mike's wife, so she helped set this up. I also know Cindy, and with those two on the Council of Aging, we were talking about some different topics, and I mentioned that we do have a Outsmart the Scammer seminar, so they asked if I would come and just, speak and give some scenarios and maybe some red flags and some tips on what you can do. Somebody asked, well, why was a financial advisor here speaking on that? And it's community outreach and education. Part of what I want to be able to do is give back to my community. And so I think it's really important, and this is a really important topic, so it's two things that really mesh together quite well. So this is going to be informal. My home office has this 30-page script for me to talk from, but I'm going to be very informal about things. And in your packet, there is a little guide to some of the things that, if you want to follow along, or just take it home and, there's some things that you can read about and just have on file. So, fraud is more prevalent than you think. And the Federal Trade Commission estimates that more than 9 million Americans have their identity stolen each year. Either through a data breach or, somehow somebody has called you again and gotten your information. And the majority of that goes unreported. The fraud and financial abuse schemes targeting the elderly are growing, a growing problem in the United States, and it costs about $36.5 billion annually. So it's a huge problem. As Chief Ryan was saying, most people are embarrassed that it happened to them, and they don't want to tell anybody because they may appear that they're not in control. It happens to every demographic, from men, women, teenagers, young adults, middle age. It happens to everybody. So it's not something that you should be embarrassed about. It's something that you should want to reach out to a trusted family member or friend for some help so it doesn't continue. So it's just prepared, or it's just important to be prepared to take steps to protect yourself. And again, as the chief was saying, report it, because if you don't report it happening to you, that person's going to move on to somebody else. And so you might be able to help prevent it from happening to somebody else. One of the common schemes that we see too is the collection fraud. You know, hi, I'm calling, I'm from the water department and we haven't seen your bill, your payment for your bill. So we need to have X amount of dollars today, otherwise we're coming to turn your water off. You know, it's something urgent. Or we're from the utility company, Duke Power, Carter at Craven, and we haven't received your utility payment, and if we don't have that by 5 o'clock today, we're turning your power off to your house. You know, there's usually an urgent need, and that they have to have payment immediately while you're on the phone with them. So those are some of the red flags. Again, it's an unsolicited call. It's urgent. They want payment immediately. And so those are like, yeah, no, you know, just hang up the phone and call, you know, the water department or call the utilities to say, I did receive this phone call. Did somebody call? You know, are my payments current and up to date? So, you know, you can help with that. And again, don't panic, just remain calm and make another call, or if you are unsure, again, call a friend or a family member to say, this has happened to me, and they can come over and help you walk through that. And then sometimes, you know, it'll be from the IRS, you know. So that's, you know, you owe back taxes, and if you don't pay this, we're sending somebody to your house to arrest you. You know, I've had that call before, and I'm like, send them on. I'll be waiting.
That's exactly what my friend said, something about her husband. She said, just come and get him.
Yeah. So,
my wife.
you know, and or if you get a request email or on paper, you know, really look closely at that payment request. As he was saying about Amazon, when it comes in, it may say Amazon, but it may say the actual email address is cheryl.mansfield@gmail.com. So it's not an official Amazon address. So look closely for things like that. Again, don't trust the caller ID because they can spoof the numbers, so that isn't good. Do your own investigation and don't fall for the scare tactics. That's what they're preying on. That's what they're hoping that you do, because it's like, well, you know, if I just they're just asking for $20 because that's what my water bill was. Well, guess what, when they call tomorrow, then they're gonna probably ask for $200 or more, because they think they've got you hooked. And the other one he already talked about was the grandparent scam. A big one is the romance and long distance sweetheart scam. As he was saying, you know, somebody was trying to get into the country. A lot are an oil rig worker or a construction worker that they have been out of town working, and you're their last resort. They've gone to their other friends and family, but they've kind of hooked you along early maybe 2-3 months prior to that, maybe they've connected with you through the internet and you've been emailing or you've been texting, but it's not somebody you've ever met in person. And then they find out about your hobbies and they ask about your family and your grandkids, and they start just having conversations with you over time. And then, oh my gosh, I can come back to Pine Knoll Shores. I just have a little bit of a problem. My ATM card was stolen, or my credit card's not working, and if you can just lend me $2,000, that's all I need to get back, and as soon as I get back, I can get this situation straightened out and I can pay you. Well, some people fall for it and they send them the $2,000 and, oh, sweetheart, I'm sorry, I have been delayed. You know, that flight didn't work out, or something. And, you know, the problem that I thought was just $2,000, it's now $5,000. And if I can just get that $5,000 when I get back, I'm going to give you the $7,000. Well, they're hooked, and they're like, well, of course I'll send it to you. And but the first time you tell them no, they get mad. I can't believe you're doing this to me. They try to make you feel guilty, and then they'll end the relationship. Well, you know what? If they end the relationship because you didn't give them money, it wasn't a relationship to begin with. They're there. They're trying to scam you. And it does happen, and it's really sad that it does happen. But what they're preying on are more of the mature person, the person that is more socially isolated, and it just happens. So having this forum like this, where you guys are out in the community and you're not isolating yourself and you're around other people, is one of the best things that you can do to protect yourself from something like that. And again, this is another thing where, like, they're asking you for money, but don't tell your daughter, because she'll probably be upset. You know, they want to keep you isolated. They don't want anybody to know about it. And so another scam that happens is the lottery and sweepstakes scam. I actually, a couple months ago, we had a client call the office. She wasn't supposed to tell anybody, but she was going to the bank. She wasn't asking from me, but she was going to her local bank to get some money because Publishers Clearinghouse called and she had won a Mercedes. And all she needed was the money to pay the taxes on that Mercedes. So she was on her way to the bank to get $5,000. I'm like, whoa, stop. I'm glad you called somebody, even though they told you not to. You need to call your daughter. You need to get somebody else involved. I said, you know, first of all, when did you enter the Publishers Clearinghouse? Well, I don't really remember, but I won. Okay, so let's look at this. Somebody's calling you unsolicited that you have won this grand prize. You don't remember entering, and they want money. And you're supposed to go give it to this lady that has nothing to do with Publishers Clearinghouse. Do you think there might be an issue here? You know, because you got to be kind of tactful. But we got her daughter involved, and the daughter, when the person called back for the meeting location, you know, the daughter said, leave my mother alone, and she hung up the phone, and that lady has not heard back from Publishers Clearinghouse about her Mercedes. But it can be, you know, any number of lottery or, you know, scams like that. But Publishers Clearinghouse, a lot of people know the name. Let's see, you know, again, you know, the contact was unsolicited. You're coached not to tell anybody. You have to send money. Those are some of the big red flags to look for. And then the social security scam, you know, touched on that too. I need to verify your social security number. You know, your benefits may be cut off if we don't talk with you. The social security department or administration is never going to call and ask for your social security number. They have it. They've had it for years. It's on your tax return. You know, when you worked and you had to pay for your payroll taxes, they have it. You know, they haven't had an issue in all of these years getting your social security checks. Why would there be an issue now with your number? So just, you know, be careful with that. Again, the Social Security Administration will never call you. And the real Social Security Administration has your number already. So, you know, what they're trying to, in general for all of these scams, is they're trying to verify your identity through your birth date, through your Social Security number, through credit card numbers. And once they get some of that information, it's on in their eyes because they can do real damage. The immediacy of the request, I need this now. Well, not for me, you don't. But, you know, so you have to look at the immediacy, and if it doesn't add up, again, it's unsolicited, you don't know the people that it's coming from, that's a big red flag. And don't tell anybody, the secrecy. They want to keep you isolated when it comes to that. So, on page, let's see, 10 and 11 in your workbook, there's just some information that you can do to protect yourself and the people that you love. And we've gone over, you know, most of this already, but just as a recap, just protect your personal information. Never provide it over the telephone. Don't put it in an email. Even in the job that I have, and when I'm opening up accounts for clients, and I may need beneficiary information. Somebody will go, oh, well, I'll email that to you. No, don't. Call my office and give that information to one of my 2 assistants. Email is not secure, and somebody might be able to get that, even if it's in a legitimate concern. Never email it. Always verbally give the information, or come by somebody's office if they're requesting that information. Make sure you know who you're talking to and that there's a legitimate reason why you need that information. Be cautious online. Make sure that your antivirus computer software is up to date. And again, don't click on any links or anything that pops up on your computer or in text that you may receive. Protect your credit information. Periodically look at your credit report. The 3 main companies require that they send you a free copy of your credit report each year, so you can request that. And you can put a fraud alert on your credit cards. So if somebody's trying to open up credit in your name, it'll pop up as a fraud alert, and you'll be notified that this is happening, and you can put a stop to it.
You can also freeze the information, so then they have to call you to unfreeze.
To unfreeze it, yes. That's.
And you know if you actually bought that bond, and like a washing machine.
Exactly.
It doesn't have to be on text or email, but you can get it when the regular postal service will deliver you a thing that says, you've been pre-approved for this credit card. Shred it, because if you don't, somebody can open an account in your name.
Yes, exactly. And then if you have had a compromised account, like a bank account, you know, close it. and reopen another one, so those numbers, the account numbers are no longer valid. Even at Edward Jones, we have our fraud department that if somebody feels that their information's been compromised, we put alerts all over that account, that they have to talk to somebody in my branch. That's one of the safeties that we have anyway, that if somebody was pretending to be one of my clients and they called the home office and said that they need to take out, you know, $5,000 withdrawal from Cheryl Mansfield's account, because I'm Cheryl Mansfield, they said, let me connect you to the branch. So either Lynn, I, or Sandy actually have to talk to our own clients and personally verify that request. We can't take requests through emails or voicemails. We have to verbally hear it. Yes, sir.
I was just wondering, while you're on the banking subject, you know, there's the Federal Deposit Insurance Corporation. I think they insure bank deposits of up to $250,000 per individual. I think I'm not sure, but is it $500,000 for a married couple? And if your bank account has been scammed and drained, will FDIC cover it?
I don't believe they will cover it, but the bank usually will pay it back. On the FDIC insurance limit, it's per person or per registration. So in your individual name, it's $250,000. In a married name, it's $250 each if it's a joint account. And then even if you have an IRA, it's $250 for that particular account type. If the wife has an IRA, it's $250 for that particular account type. And also if there's trusts involved, it's $250.
Thank you.
Yep. Yes, ma'am.
Another thing that I've discovered or I've learned, the way computer hacks happen all the time. And I have made it so easy once somebody gets in my computer, the way I label my files. This is my personal file. This is my personal finance. You know, I have that to where they can find, you know, the information that they're probably looking for. So I suggest that you might review how you've labeled your files, and you might want to change them a little bit and maybe give yourself some hints as to what it really means.
And so thank you. Yes, that's great information. And so, you know, other resources that are available, and this is listed on page 12 and 13 in your book. You know, you can contact your state attorney general's office. You can contact your local police department. There's the Consumer Financial Protection Bureau, the Better Business Bureau. You know, there's several different things in there, you know, your financial institution. So, you know, read through that. I'm not going to sit here and go da-da-da-da, but the information is there for you to look through. And
I have a question.
yes.
On this, I've got an email that said I could find what my credit score is or whatever. So I called one of these numbers, I guess, but they wanted to know my social security number, and I canceled from that.
I would cancel it from there too. I'm not sure how those numbers work personally, but if they're asking for a social security number, I wouldn't do it. They should be able to get some other verifying information from you.
Yeah, okay.
And so, yeah, so, you know, just to wrap up real quick, you know, if someone, you know, oh, I'm sorry. I'm sorry.
I'm sorry, I was asking what the question she
okay.
answered. I know now, thank you.
And, you know, just be diligent. Again, get a friend or family member involved. Don't panic. And if you can, you know, look it up, you know, do a little bit of internet research, or again, you know, call a friend or family member. So,
And you're really busy right now. I've had 2 on my phone in the last 5 minutes.
Yes, ma'am.
She's had
I was just gonna ask about the identity protection services that some offers, like my insurance company offers that as an option. Are they valuable to do that?
I know there are some that are valuable, not off the top of my head. I can't remember the main one.
LifeLock, I don't know if that's what that is.
LifeLock or
Yeah.
something like that, yeah. You know, that would be a personal decision on that, but I think if I had something compromised, I would invest in that over like a 12-month period, just to make sure that there's nothing else that would happen. So, any other questions? I will try to answer, otherwise, I really appreciate everybody coming out today.
Thank you.
Mayor Broadman may want to say a few words. So last minute add on.
I just wanted to say that I have a special offer for you.
See?
But it has to be completed by the end of the day. Really, I just wanted to say thank you all for coming out. This is a great turnout. And I want to thank Cheryl Mansfield, Lynn and Mike DeLore for organizing this, and Cindy Schershing, of course, who's the chairperson of our Council on Aging. We hope to get a lecture series like this off the ground is running, and Mike has taken the lead on that. But I just wanted to ask all of you, if you have a particular topic that you think would be an interesting discussion for this Pine Knoll Shores group, please let Mike or Cindy know, and we'll put it on the schedule for an upcoming month. So, but thank you all for coming.
Thank you. And also, we have a Facebook page. Please go out there and follow us. You can get information. Cindy continues to put stuff out there, and I like it.
Well,
was that,
also,
Mike?
to note, it's being filmed now. This, I hope, can go on the town website, that the council can have our own dedicated space. So if there are details about this seminar that you want to just reprise and take a look at, John Clark has that expertise, and as soon as we get a spot, we'll load it up. So that's the plan.
Thank you, John.
Absolutely.
And Cindy, the Council on the Aging meetings our meetings are open to everyone.
Yes.
So,
Yes.
Can come.
they're announced,
Yes.
so, you're welcome to come to any of the meetings that we hold.
Yeah, and they've been very well attended. I've been absolutely pleased with the kind of response people have made to the council. And our whole focus is really just trying to make your experience in the community just a little bit better. You know, if you got an issue, if there's something we can fix, it's really a neighbor to neighbor kind of reaching out, and we love the ideas, and some key people have taken some initiatives on some very important aspects of living in this community. So come on out.
Regular meetings are,
I'm sorry?
the regular meetings are.
Well, they're roughly the second week in a month, but.
Tuesday.
Yeah, second Tuesday, but at 10:30 here in this room. But do look to see when the dates are actually listed. There's the whole schedule for 2023 is out there.
Well, if there's nothing else, there's plenty of donuts and fruit roll-ups and water. Please go over and help yourself. Thank you all for coming out.
Yeah.